Go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is our working session meeting, 5 p.m. on August the 7th. All the members are here. Everybody's had a chance to review the minutes of our regular meeting on July 24th. And the public hearing on 7:30. If there's no additions or corrections, I'll do it by unanimous consent. Corrections. I think I'll wait till council comments or somewhere until we get through the agenda. Let's go first to under administrative, Kentucky Bourbon Festival, the street closure request, and Jill Hawkins here, Executive Director of the Kentucky Bourbon Festival. If you've got any questions, Jill can answer that. It's pretty straightforward, similar to the last several years' request, I think. One thing I think we've added is the trolley safe ride home stops. I think that's been added. That's the only change from last year.
There was one issue I saw last year right at 5th Street where the St. Joseph parking lot is there. Everybody was turning in from Boston Road and coming in there and thinking it's through. And I don't know if we put signs up there or something that said no through thing, but I don't want to look like it's closed either for the St. Joe's. I'm not sure how to correct that, but I don't know if you were aware of that or.
We were. We have had several meetings with the chief and the assistant chief Seeley. Because of access to that parking lot, they don't think we should move the barriers up any further. They're hoping that maybe they can do something to help with that situation. But yes,
As long as somebody's aware of it and trying to figure something out, because I don't have an answer for it really, but.
neither do we, so we're looking towards Chief Seeley.
I have a question, Mayor. You're offering a safe ride home?
Yes.
How far out do you go?
So our shuttle hits all the hotels, all the campgrounds, and then we loop it through the active events every evening. So within a loop that hits as far as out as the Go Center, and then out to White Acres, out to the Parkway, through town, out to the park and that campground, and the hotels out there. And then we are working with the KDA to have more Lyft drivers in town during the run of the festival, so that there will be another option as well. And I wouldn't speak for the KDA, but they often, when there is a big event, and they do ask Lyft drivers to come in, put discount codes out through social media, so that there are discounts available to guests that prefer that option.
Thank you.
Okay, then I'd ask for a motion then to approve the request for the Kentucky Bourbon Festival 2018 for street closures and lawn layout here at City Hall.
So moved.
A motion by Councilman Kelly, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Copeland. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Jill.
Thank you.
Good luck on your event this year.
Thank you.
Be around the corner.
Yes.
Okay, Daniel, I'm calling you for the bid tab on our HVAC and heating bids for the Recreation Department.
We had a bid close yesterday at 10 o'clock. Had two companies. In a way, I guess one contributed 2 bids, the other contributed 1 into the process. The single company came out ahead by just over $2,000, and it's a bigger unit in comparison to the opposing bids, a 25-ton versus a 20-ton unit. And this is going to be installed exterior on the Recreation Department and funneled in to the ceiling. Just looking for your all's approval to enter a contract with Frank's Heating and Air on that.
Who is Frank's Heating and Air?
It's owned by John Frank.
Yeah, he's here in Nelson County, right? Yeah.
Is this within the budget, I guess?
It's bid came in at 43,000. We originally budgeted 40,000. In that line item, I have 48,000 total for building improvement or repairs and improvements. So I'm gonna take the additional 3,000 out of there because this system's actually gonna have heat and air with it, not just air conditioning alone. So it's gonna kind of replace to a point the hanging heaters that we have in the gym now. So I won't have to spend money repairing those, which you usually have to repair every year. So I'll save money on repairs and put that into this system.
Why did the Browns Mechanical put two bids in?
One is a heat pump system and the other is just a heat exchanger, gas heat exchange.
So one of those bids, or you feel like are apples and apples comparison to Frank's bid? I mean, the equipment is equal.
Their upper, well, it's not equal, it's 25 ton unit
Yeah,
versus 20 ton.
his is a larger
But
unit.
Gas exchange to gas exchange,
Okay.
they're equal. The 45,000 is the heat pump system.
Okay. So there weren't any options as far as heat strips or anything like that that were included on one bid that wasn't in the other? They're both a gas system or a hybrid system?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, he didn't feel the need to have heat strips with our utility being right there
Right.
beside it. It's more efficient to go gas.
Any other questions? Daniel? If not, then I would ask for a motion then to accept the recommendation from Operation Director for bid of $43,000 for Frank's Heating and Air, the HVAC system for the gymnasium.
So moved.
I have a motion by Councilman Williams, have a second?
Second.
Second.
It's called second.
Keisha's fast drawing tonight. Keisha. Second by Councilman Copeland. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. When do you think they'll start, Daniel?
He said he could get a unit in fairly quickly, so hopefully it'd be installed early September.
Thank you. Jessica, you want to walk us through the street resurfacing bid, please?
Yes, sir. That time of year, every year, about this time, we do our street resurfacing bid that will give us kind of a unit price per ton for asphalt for all of our street resurfacing that we do within our budget that we allocate. This year, the total price per ton that includes the state price mix material value with the haul and lay came in at $81 a ton. That was higher than I anticipated. Last year our bid came in at $69 a ton. So I think I had estimated with my budget numbers around $73 to $74 a ton. So I'm looking at options on how, what do I remove from my list to maybe defer some maintenance? Is there some money available from 3 of the streets that I had on the list this year were streets that we didn't get to on this past year, so they were kind of carryover streets. So I had a little money left over in that line item from last fiscal year. And then we're also going to try to approach the state municipal aid office and rural development aid to see if we can maybe get some additional monies to help us, cover some of this. So that's kind of where I'm at, is seeing if I don't get those monies, what streets I need to take out or have to delay. But that does have an impact because trying to maintain our 5.8 miles to stay on a 15-year paving cycle, that kind of jump kind of puts a little bit of a monkey wrench in it.
So we're just approving the price per ton?
Yes, we're approving the price per
We're not
ton.
approving 600 and...
Right. That's just
That'd be
with
subject to maybe a budget amendment or something.
Right, a budget amendment if we're able to carry
Or last
some.
year's money or get money somewhere else.
That's exactly right. So before I come back to you for any type of request for a budget amendment, I'm going to see what other funds we might be able to have available to us. And the bid always states that the overall budget, in number of streets are subject to change based on our budget constraints. So we kind of leave that open depending on what what those numbers are. But I would like to ask the council to move to approve the bid, if you may.
Jesse, is most of the cost going up due to the increase in the price of oil probably?
Yes, Mago provided me with their fuel and asphalt adjustment index, the KAPI and the OPIS indices that come out. It's posted, it's online, and just watching the trend since February well, I guess it's more like January of 2017 to now. I think the asphalt, KAPI asphalt number was around $318, and now in August, it's $525 for a barrel of asphalt, so, or whatever that unit, this indices creates. So it's a substantial increase that I'm sure everyone is going to be feeling, because it's what they're buying their asphalt for. And those are kind of set. So.
And I think this is the same price that is it what we call the state contract price?
Yes.
So that's what they'll be bidding for that work, as well as county roads, I guess, also?
Yes, so they kind of amend their haul and lay price based on how many times they have to mobilize and move around.
Right.
So we generally don't get quite the same price as the county, but they're usually in the ballpark.
But the asphalt is the
But the
same.
asphalt state price, mixed price is the same. And if there is a fluctuation, like for instance in 6 months, what we don't pay this fall, if there's a steady decline and it drops more than 15%, just like with the state price, we'll get that benefit of a reduced price. It'll also go the other way too, though. If there's a 50% increase, then it could go the other way. But we're hoping we're at the top already.
So the reason we didn't get all our streets done is because of the contractor just couldn't get to all of it, like last year?
No, there was some repair areas in the neighborhood that we were trying to negotiate out some repair work. And so we were holding off that work until the resurfacing of that neighborhood, until those areas were resolved. And that kind of got delayed until we were past July 1. So we were hoping we were going to get that worked out by the end of the summer. It didn't quite do that. We didn't quite do that. So there was a couple of streets that were all beside one another, and we were kind of keeping those in that group. So.
Okay, any other questions? And I would ask them, we have a motion to accept the per ton price for asphalt for this budget year of $81 a ton. So Mago Construction's bid.
Mago Construction.
Got a motion then by Councilman Buckman. Got a second?
Keisha?
You're so funny.
Is that a yes? Yes. I have a motion by Councilman Copeland, or a second by Councilman Copeland. Any other discussion or questions?
So the overall aggregate price, I guess, of the $81 per ton, that's still a floating price. We're not locking that in by any means, so that can fluctuate.
It's locked in just the same as the state price contract is locked in, with that 15% up or down flow.
Okay.
So it's the same way with the highway contract, with the state work.
Thank
So
you.
you're going to give us a list of once you get through with your, figure out where the money's going to come from, you're going to give us a list of streets.
Yes. And I can send you my preliminary list if anybody's interested in that.
I'll just wait to use the savage one. But
Right now, it's like really color-coded up, so I didn't want to
saw that.
confuse everyone.
I saw that as well, so I'll just wait.
I can certainly do that.
Okay, all in favor then, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Oak Trace subdivision water and sewer service request. Jessica, that's you again.
Yes. There is a new development going in off of Philiatro Lane that is, I guess it's going to be around 55 duplex units, so 110 residential family units going in that are requesting water and sewer service by the city. It's currently in the county, but it is adjacent to the city boundaries on just about 3 of the 4 sides. So I have asked them, and they have complied and submitted an annexation agreement already signed. And this is just that formality for them to submit to the Division of Water that upon meeting all of their requirements, that we will take in the water and sewer infrastructure and will serve that development with utility.
Where is that exactly? Is it closer to the Woodlawn Road end of Philiacho?
It is. It backs up to kind of in a corner to Early Times. So it's adjacent. It shares a boundary. It's kind of at the end of Boblet Lane. That it's kind of just a drive lane, Boblet Lane, that it kind of ends.
Schuler property?
I'm thinking it was once. It's kind of beside the Schuler property, and so on the other side, I think these same owners are purchasing some land that I believe at one point in time was owned, or maybe still is currently in ownership by Denny Breeding. But it kind of is between Schuler Industrial Park and that, I guess it's owned by the Woodlawn Golf Club course that was a driving range for a bit. So it's kind of right there.
Is that going to facilitate or, I guess, accelerate the need for your sewer changes out there too? I mean, as far as the Round Creek extension? Because you're kind of taxed to the max out there as it is with the Woodlawn system, right? Is that going to be part of that?
This actually does not drain into the Woodlawn pump station. It actually gravities into the existing Round Creek truck lane that we already have design plans working for that improvement, that upsize. And it actually, this segment of line also goes directly over to the Nelson County Industrial Park. So that's in the game plan and was part of that urban growth area that will have a 12-inch line. So we should be fine. This will be the upper end of that Round Creek gravity line that it's in design right now. So I think we'll be okay. But I think this could spark some additional growth surrounding that would then escalate our need to, or the community's need to extend Rowan on up to the Woodlawn Springs pump station area to kind of make that property available, because sewer is gravity. It flows downhill and you kind of have to watch those areas. So there's not a whole lot else that can naturally fall to what infrastructure we have right now. So there will need to be some improvements in that area.
Not immediate need, I guess, as they develop what they plan to develop.
We're
that
okay,
system's okay.
yes. But anything adjacent that starts coming on, there's going to need to be some
Negotiation
additional
with
planning.
developers.
Yes, and
So this
some
is-
private and public partnership on with this.
We're okay on this development with our existing infrastructure, and it's just, it'll be better when we can do our extensions in, right?
Right, with the plan, with the current trunk upgrades, this has already kind of been accounted for.
Not the extension. but
Right, not
upgrades that
the
are currently-
extension, but the Round Creek trunk that goes to Potter Shop, all of that's needed. Again, 110 home units, I mean, you're probably talking 2 or 3, 5 years, could be 10 years to get all of that built. But for now, I think we can handle that load while we're in the process of getting this line constructed.
That's where the old driving range is, and that little house that's sitting back there.
Yes, it kind of is catty corner to, like, in between that. The driving range is to the east, towards
Right.
Woodlawn Road from it, and then behind it is that house.
Yeah, and back in the early times.
So its
Yes.
access is going to be off of
Off of
Philiacho,
Philiacho.
not from Woodlawn. right?
Correct. Access will be from Philiacho Lane. It
There's a road-
fronts Philiacho Lane.
Okay, but there's a little road that comes in the backside of it right now. There was.
Yeah,
Without
the
the-
Boblet Lane does touch that, but it's not currently being proposed to be upgraded and to have their main access be from there.
The Boblet Lane used to go all the way across.
Kind of snaked around and
Come back in behind every time.
Okay, any other
doing a lot of hand talking.
questions? If If not, then I can ask for a motion to approve the sewer and water gravity system extension for the Oak Trace subdivision
So moved.
with the stipulation of the
Oh,
annexation.
sorry.
The annexation agreement. I'm sorry, I was a little slow on it. With the
You're number
annexation
two.
agreement, annexation agreement is part of that
Yes.
request. Now,
So moved.
Councilman Copeland, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Knowles. Any other discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. All opposed, motion carried.
Mr. Mayor, I abstain from voting on that.
Okay. All right. We have a mobile food vendor, the Kentucky Barbecue Company. This is kind of like some of the other mobile food vendors that we've approved here in the last few years. Like Hog Run and most of the others. That's one I see the most of.
Hog Run is the most prevalent one, most active. I can say that the one thing that this packet or application is missing is the property owner's consent. And I've talked with the owner, Mr. Cawthorn, at length. He had not gone out to solicit locations until he got his approval. So he asked that we present it to the council with the condition that is, as soon as he receives approval to be a mobile food vendor in the city, then he will begin to reach out to businesses and get that approval.
Which those have to come in for approval too. He has to go like to Save-A-Lot or Busy's or Walmart or wherever they're gonna set up, get approval, Boone's, Butcher Shop, or whatever. That's a whole nother application process that has to be approved each time that they are gonna set up to operate at one of those locations. And I think it's 2 week,
Maximum of 14 consecutive days.
right, to do that. So, I don't think that's a big issue here. I guess he wants, it's a chicken or the egg thing. He didn't want to go out asking for approvals if he didn't have his approval from us to start with. So, I ask for a motion then to approve the mobile food vendor permit application for the Kentucky Barbecue Company. Robbie Cawthorn is the owner.
So
Motion by Councilman Shekels, have a second.
second.
Second by Councilman Williams. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, Mike Boone's request for 2 cemetery deeds. Do that by unanimous consent. Next item is an ordinance, chapter 1001, it's regarding murals. And I'll give you a little background when we have some more discussion once we get into the motion. But this came as a result of some of the work from the Bourbon Capital Community Alliance. If you might know, some of the work they've already been involved with was mainly has to do with enhancing the visitors' experience here in our community, but also quality of life for those of us who live here and so forth. But they did the compass in front of the courthouse, the Bourbon Capital compass there. They were involved also with some of the newer wayfinding signs. That's wayfinding signage are the brown signs that show you, approximate location in miles to an attraction or some of our distilleries. They've been very involved with that. We're currently working with our archives through Richey to create this, I think it's an augmented reality app. I think it's the right word for it. Don't ask me to describe how it works, but again, that's another part of the work that they're doing. So the discussion about murals came up about 3 years ago when they first did start their work. And murals there had been a prohibition on murals because we also have a prohibition on billboards. So we just didn't have any language to address murals when we did the sign ordinance years ago. And so the request came about that there's a lot of buildings that have not front facades, but the sides of those buildings and everything would make a nice location for a mural. So this is why this has come to us through the Bourbon Catholic Community Alliance. You know, there are, if you read the regulation, which we'll get into, there is language in there that, you know, it prohibits it from being a billboard with a commercial message. You just have, it could depict a distillery, for instance, but it wouldn't be one that would be advertising Barton 1792, you know, 3 miles away, you know, that kind of stuff. So it would, just to kind of help add to the community. If you've been to a lot of any other cities, you see these kind of things, and a lot of other towns like ours that are heavy on tourism and heavy on historic property and so forth. So that's the background of this, and if somebody, I guess we need someone to introduce them, and Tim will let you read the summary of it. Anybody, any of the councilmen want to introduce it?
I'll do that, Mayor.
I would say, if I may be an order, Mayor, I'd like to introduce ordinance B 2018, and ordinance creating the chapter 101 mural to regulate the standards for creating mural art in the city of Bardstown, requiring permit and for other purposes.
And that's going to be read
That's to be read by summary by City Attorney Mr. Kim Butler.
Thank you, sir. Summary of Ordinance B 2018 murals. This ordinance will add section 101 to City of Bardstown Code of Ordinances entitled Murals, regulating the size, placement, and location of and administrative process to allow murals within the city limits of Bardstown. Add sections 101.1 and 101.2 to provide information concerning the purpose and applicability of the ordinance. Section 101.3 provides standards and guidelines as related to permits required, installation and time requirements for murals, location, design, and style of murals, and maintenance of murals. 101.4 provides administrative requirements for review and approval of mural applications. Section 101.99 provides requirements and regulations regarding violations, enforcement, and penalties, and states as follows. A, violations, subsection A, murals forfeited. Any mural installed after adoption of this ordinance, except in conformance with these requirements, shall be considered in violation of this ordinance. In addition to other remedies hereunder, the city shall have the right to recover from the owner or person placing the mural the full cost of the removal of the mural. B, violations. Any of the following shall be a violation of this ordinance and shall be subject to the enforcement remedies and penalties provided by this ordinance and by state law. I, to install, create, erect, or maintain any mural in a way that is inconsistent with any plan or permit governing such mural or on the lot on which the mural is located. 2, to install, create, erect, maintain any mural requiring a permit without such permit. 3, to install, create, erect any mural for which a permit has expired and where no additional mural permit has been issued. 4, to fail to remove any mural that is installed or maintained in violation of this ordinance. Subsection C, each day of a continued violation shall be considered a separate violation when applying the penalty portions of this ordinance. B, enforcement. The sign administrator shall have the authority to issue citations for violations of this ordinance, but shall not have powers of peace officers to make arrests or carry deadly weapons. A person receiving a citation shall appear before the sign administrator within 7 days or as stated on the citation. B, any violation or attempted violation of this ordinance or any condition or requirement adopted pursuant hereto may be restrained, corrected, or abated as the case may be by injunction or other appropriate proceedings pursuant to state law. The remedies of the city shall include, but are not limited to, the following. I, issuing a stop work order for any and all work on any mural. 2, seeking an injunction or other order of restraint or abatement that requires the removal of the mural or the correction of the nonconformity. And 3, in the case of a mural that poses an immediate danger to the public health or safety, take such measures as are available to the city under applicable building codes or other ordinances. C, all remedies provided herein shall be cumulative to the extent the state law may limit the availability of a particular remedy set forth herein for a certain violation or part thereof. The remedy shall remain available for other violations or other parts of the same violation. C, penalties. Subsection A, violation of the provisions of the ordinance or failure to comply with any of its requirements shall constitute a misdemeanor. Any person who violates this ordinance or fails to comply with any of its requirements shall, upon conviction thereof, be fined not less than $50 nor more than $500. Each day such violation continues shall be considered a separate offense. B, the owner and also, if applicable, the person placing the mural who commits, participates in, or maintains the violation may be found guilty of a separate offense and suffer penalties herein provided. C, nothing herein contained shall prevent the city from taking such other lawful action as is necessary to prevent or remedy any violation. Now therefore be it ordained by the city of Bardstown, Kentucky, that from and after the passage, approval, and publication of this ordinance, Chapter 101 murals is adopted in its entirety. See the attached. This summary was certified by me, Tim Butler, City Attorney.
Now, Tim, can we make any changes to this after the first reading between the second? It's been a while since I've been city attorney.
You can make changes right now and recognize that on first read, the changes was made at first read.
Well, I guess one point I'm kind of, I have a little bit of concern with, let's look at a decorative type thing. And the only thing we've done is restrict no commercial stuff. And and that makes it wide open to, let's say, a neo-Nazi group putting something in, or something else might be a detriment to community. I'd rather have a list of these are the things we approve, and maybe we just accept that one commercial thing. So I have a little bit of concern there. Because this applies outside the historical district, and we can't arbitrarily approve or disapprove something because we don't like it unless we put some guidelines in it.
Is that where the sign administrator comes into play?
No, if we don't put any guidelines in this,
That's true.
the sign administrator has to have something in the ordinance that he or she can rely on, saying you can't have that up there. Right now, the only thing we put in there, you can't put a commercial on there.
That's true. I think you would get into the difference between freedom of speech, like if you get into something between an advertisement or just if it's someone's property and want to call it a mural, then we could get into a freedom of speech issue.
And that's why maybe we just say right now we're prohibiting it. So we're just, instead of opening a big window, let's open a little window. And I was in part of some of the original discussions, or some of the discussions that they talk about it, and I'm for it, but I'm just scared of how big
Well, that's
and it's a hard thing to draft, I know, as an attorney.
Yeah, this is about the fourth or fifth version of this. Tim's
Yes.
worked on it, and Hannah and myself and Rashay. So
Yeah.
you raise a good question, though. I think we need to.
And the, in theory, you can regulate commercial speech more strictly. Murals are art and considered free speech, and I think we're probably about as far along as in regulating as we can. I think that when you open that door, and the message, what the courts have said is you don't regulate the message, so I think that if somebody wanted to put up something,
I don't think murals are there for any message. I think they're just there as a decorations like a paint color, though it's going to be maybe a scene or historical scene, or if we restricted some sort of historical scene, or maybe that's too restrictive, but I don't know.
I think that the intent here is to keep it from having verbiage, or at least excessive verbiage, especially verbiage, wording of a commercial nature. But
there's nothing in there that, if somebody came up with that, there's nothing in there that says you cannot do that. I mean, if somebody came up with a swastika and put on there, we can't say you can't.
I think there's somebody came up with a swastika, they would be
Okay,
allowed to do that.
I didn't see that.
And I think they would be allowed to do it. There's nothing there that would prohibit that. And I'm not so sure that you can, under free speech, you can, with the signs, they pretty much have allowed, free speech wise, they've allowed signage and murals and things to go pretty far. And you have to be very careful that you are not regulating the message that someone's trying to send with that.
Well, I think, as I understand, murals is not really, they're for a message or for decoration.
Their art is what.
Their
is
art
what
and
we're
decoration.
Fine Arts Bardstown.
And then, whatever messes people start putting up there, and like you said, not really supposed to be any word, maybe the intent is no wordage without, being kind of ancillary to the artistic part, but,
Does that fall under something like an approval process by one of our boards? I mean, if it was come up for approval, if they submitted the artwork, could that be submitted for approval or denial?
The way I read the cases that have come out on this, that would be, like I said, we're really pushing this with what we've got. We really are, believe it or not. It's one of those things where, the reason that I think murals have not been allowed is for this very reason, is because once you allow it, it's either wide open or it's closed. There's no.
I'd rather make it some restrictive and then take the chance on somebody. I think the case law is not clear enough where we're absolutely, if we made a list of the type of murals you can have, that they can come in and say no, they'll have to be denied a permit and then sue us somewhere on it. And I think we could, if we make it restrictive enough, I think we could avoid. I think we would have a chance of winning it.
Well, I think that I'm not sure we could craft anything here on the spot to do what you're talking about.
You want to table it then until you and Tim work on some other?
Or in committee, I think that there a committee there is, but
there's a committee that is addressing it. We've considered some of the things you're talking about, but we just had to go that when you have to look at the mural to determine if the content is allowed or not, that they say that the courts have said that's a violation of free speech. That if you have to determine what it says or the message is trying to convey, if that's the way you regulate it, you are regulating content. It's not content neutral.
And then with the commercial things,
we're pushing it. Yeah, it's supposed to be content neutral, and we've said no commercial speech under the same theory you just said, that we don't want commercial, and we'll let somebody sue us. But then you start talking about outside of commercial, which historically, commercial versus non-commercial.
Well, I'm not making this list of what you can't do. Right now, you can't do zero. We're just going to open up that door, what you can't do, a little bit wider than what you can do. Historical depictions and.
Even if you make a list and say, well, we only allow a historical mural, well, someone could decide to put a historical mural that would depict, let's say, a Civil War scene that could be deemed offensive by certain groups of people.
Right.
Yes.
The list is going to be hard to do.
Right.
But, and I hate to throw this up there, but I would hate to see us allow the murals and all of a sudden somebody come with something that just everybody in town would not be happy with, and it would not be a asset to our community to have that up there, and we'd be telling whoever issues the permit, don't sign it, but they would have to sign it. I don't think they have a choice to sign it. We don't have anything in the ordinance that they can cite to that, look, I can't sign it because of this.
I agree with John, because history is good and ugly at times. So I would propose that we table it until you guys are able to discuss it further.
Well, Bourbon Capital Community Alliance, as part of their work they've been doing, also the FABs, which they're got a new name now, but they've been pushing it for a good while. If you go to other cities, you see murals pretty often, so it has been.
I think it's a good asset. Of course, but this ordinance is only going to apply outside the historical district, and I don't know if the historical commission has come up with a proposal for them.
They regulate it.
They allow it?
Yes, they allow it, but it's subject to the historical criteria, and it's supposed to be, like for instance, lamplighter and cream drug, where you got the big cream drug on the side of the building. That's all historically appropriate. It's appropriate to the time, to the building. That's what they used to do at that time, so it's different standard. Courts have recognize that historic is, in some respects is trumps a little bit, no, that's a bad term. The sign and free speech and that kind of, that's a significant community interest and is considered as something that will offset someone's otherwise allowed free speech rights.
Well, I'm not saying I won't maybe eventually vote for how it is, but I'd like to explore that
If
issue.
you all would like to, ask for most of the table at this point for some further research by both our staff as well as the Urban Capital Community Alliance.
I got one more thing I'd like to talk about on it too.
I was gonna say, in the historical district, the HRB determines
Yeah.
what the murals look like.
Yeah.
Now, outside the HRB, who would be the governing body or the board?
Shane would have.
Well, that's what I was asking.
Unless it was written differently to have
There isn't any, unless we create it in this ordinance, there isn't any.
Well, we got a code enforcement board, it's still on books, we haven't been using much, but that's what I was asking. Who was gonna monitor, was the sign?
Shane, right.
Sign, right now, it's the
It
sign.
would be a sign administrator, the ministers that would.
Well, that's what I'm saying, would it be just at her discretion, or should we use a code
You
enforcement board?
could
Well, there is no discretion. Well, it's
You
written.
could add the council's approval if you want, but that's.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the
it's up to
code
you.
enforcement.
But we couldn't arbitrarily turn it down because we don't like the message unless we put some standards in the ordinance. We can't just say we don't like it, just like these vendors that apply. We can't really turn them down if they comply with every pigeonhole ordinance, even if we don't want that person here or, for whatever reason, we can't turn them, down because we don't like that type of food or, something like that.
To answer your question.
No, I got one more thing, other than what, as soon as he's finished with his topic.
Go ahead. I'm finished.
All right. In one section, it says that murals must be painted by hand. And I'm just going to bring up a situation that I've seen in Knoxville, Tennessee, for example. They have a mural that's probably 3 stories tall on one of their historic buildings downtown. But it depicts the scene of their town, like you've seen our pictures here 100 years ago. And they've depicted this, and it is a screen print, but it's on the side of that building. So the way this is written, we would not be able to do that. And I think that's an option. I think shut the door on that right now because that's a very nice looking.
There was a lot of discussion about that, and what that usually requires is structural addition to the building. The banners like in Louisville where they have, this is Paul Horning's Louisville or whatever,
Right.
those are banners that hang down, that are anchored. But the ones like you're talking about would require a smooth surface to be added to, typically, smooth surface, added to a building so that you could put that on there, just like you do have a smooth surface on a billboard.
I think it's a stretched canvas, something of that nature, like you would see a billboard, but it's still attached to the building.
Well, typically it's going to have a subsurface before you attach it to the building. And what we were trying to avoid is doing damage to the buildings by adding a surface that then you could, well, that becomes more and more like a billboard and less like a traditional mural. So yes, those were, now by the way, every bit of this discussion is what this committee was hashing over and over. And so a lot of these things have been considered. That was eliminated on purpose because of potential damage to a building, and it opens up a lot of, for instance, I have a building that has offsets because our new building code requires offsets. Well, that deters to a certain extent murals because you have that 3-dimensional aspect. Whereas if you could put a flat surface that didn't take into consideration the offsets in the buildings, now all of a sudden you've got a section that can do a mural, and there would be a proliferation of them potentially. In other words, you would encourage more murals by doing that. This committee, I know, did not see that as necessarily a good thing, where you would, we're looking more at the Sea Rock Cities kind of things as opposed to, which is a commercial message, by the way. but, something that would be a little more historic and, a bourbon barrel or something was the example I was
Again,
given, not with anybody's
More
logo.
along the lines of art as opposed
Sure.
to enhance some of the look of the downtown. But I'm happy if y'all want to table it for us to do some more work on it.
Well, Mayor, in light of the discussion we've had, I think it's in our best interest to table it, because any kind of, to try and come to some kind of conclusion on what we would accept would be arbitrary, and that'd probably get us in trouble.
I think that too, it puts a lot of responsibility on Rashay to say, yes, that would be appropriate, no. I'm
I
agree with
don't
you,
think
John, totally.
it would be, all she does decide is a commercial message or not, period.
Yeah.
No matter how ugly or how
Offensive.
offensive it would be, if it doesn't have commercial messaging, she has to issue the permit.
Yeah.
Okay. So do I have a motion then for tabling it?
So moved, Mayor.
Okay. So have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Jones. Any other discussion? All in favor, then signify by saying aye. Opposed? Okay. We'll revisit this down the road. I'll move back up then under council comments. Anyone have anything to bring before the council members? Anything to bring before the council this evening?
I just have one item that I had written down, Mayor, if I may, and it's more of a question, and it may be directed at Chief more than anyone. The tornado warning system, how is that tested and by whom takes care of that system?
Off the top of my head, I know it's activated to the 911.
The EMS or the 911 system?
Yeah, and I would say that it would have to go through the EMA person, Joe Pruitt, to activate it. So
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure on that. I will find out and let you know.
Well, I had several questions. I don't know if you all did.
Went
but
off the other night.
Yeah.
Oh, did it?
And we didn't have a tornado warning currently for Nelson County, and it went off, and it was going off for quite a while.
It went off at 6 o'clock, like the old 6 o'clock.
Like the old 6 o'clock, and that was my next question, is that how did that come about to where we didn't do that anymore? We didn't test it at 6 o'clock? Was that a community kind of consensus that we get rid of that, or?
It was the dinner bell.
Yeah, that's what I had to wait.
Yeah, that sure screwed up a few baseball games right there.
That's a different.
Stop the game.
6 o'clock.
It was the
Yeah.
fire siren.
Okay.
The tornado siren should be tested the first Tuesday of every month.
Okay. All right, that was my question. So they are two completely different sirens?
Two different times.
Okay.
Well, it might have been the first Tuesday of the month when they went off.
They should be,
It went off at 6, I know it went off at 6 o'clock.
But it was at the same time we were having other inclement weather right around the same time, and it was confusing to people at the time because we had had some rough weather around that same time when it went off, so. Thanks, Chief.
I'll find the answers.
And it's also, within the past, they went out and there's weather.
Right.
I thought 6 o'clock whistle was coming back. I don't know what's in the
I'm sorry, that's all I had.
Okay. Anything else? I don't have anything else to add, so
Did you have much discussion this morning about with the Bourbon Capital Alliance about the possibility
yes, ma'am. Go ahead, finish.
about the possibility of maybe changing our Sunday drink license for early time in case some of the new restaurants in town may want to do a Sunday brunch and.
There's two things. Number one, and this was going to come in the next week or two at the next meeting. We're having to update our alcoholic beverage control licensing anyway because of the number of changes that have come with the state in the last couple of years. So we've got to get ours cleaned up so it mirrors what the state is required. But the Bourbon Capital Community Alliance had a meeting this morning. They're going to be sending us a letter requesting that we consider changing our Sunday by the drink starting times, and I'm waiting to have that. I should have that in the next couple of days. Betty was at the meeting this morning. I think Louisville, Frankfort, Lexington, and I I know those 3 cities have recently changed theirs. Again, it has to do with, a lot of it has to do with the Bourbon Trail communities where there's activities going on related to brunches and so forth. So they're going to send us a letter by the end of this week, which we'll share with you all beforehand, and then that'll be part of some of the recommendations for the changes that we're going to be making to our ABC licensing. There's quite a few of those changes we had to make.
We have a fairly comprehensive update of the alcoholic beverage control ordinance to make it more closely mirror and adopt the changes that have been made on state level. But what I would recommend, Mayor, is that since we're doing it, let's do it all as one nice thing. And so what I guess it may need to have is maybe be on discussion for next agenda, and then get some sort of consensus about the verbiage to include, and then have first read at the next meeting.
And then you can have it second reading the first Tuesday of September.
Correct.
Because I think some are hopeful, I think, is that this could be implemented before Bourbon Festival, because there's a number of events. So that would give us time to have that done.
Yes.
So first thing I was going to do is share the letter with you all when we get it, which we don't have, and then the ordinance will be cleaned up for your all's consideration.
Okay, so we'll have an ordinance when we discuss it, or we'll just have a, we have a list of the things they want to, we want to consider. In other words, I don't know if we just come in, want a discussion regarding alcohol ordinance, and then we get the ordinance that has other issues in it that we didn't discuss.
Yeah, the ordinance changes, there's a draft out there right now. We're actually working on the summary, because some of us don't want to read the whole thing. But it addresses almost, and the question came up, should we address the Sunday issue? And I said, not as staff, you all shouldn't address it. I mean, because you don't have any direction from the council. That's a policy decision. The changes that are being made are all to clean up, clarify, to make it more in keeping with what the state allows, so that somebody that comes in isn't getting different licenses and they don't really match. It's trying to make it a little more streamlined. So that ordinance could be there for your alls to look at the next meeting. But what I would suggest is, unless, and I don't advocate trying to develop policy, outside of the meetings, but unless there's clear consensus here, we want, I think right now it's noon or 1 o'clock. That if there's a clear consensus, we want to allow it to start at 10 or something, then we can draft that and have it ready for first read next Tuesday. If there's a consensus here tonight, we can draft that. If you want to develop consensus, consider this and develop consensus later, it would be at next meeting, and we would include that as part of the global changes that we have otherwise.
So if anybody wants on the agenda, and so everybody would have noticed what we're going to talk about, if they want to put the earlier Sunday hours, we can put that as a subheading to that, or any other issue. And of course, I know we can't email each other, email back, call up, all that, but we can just say,
We can give you a draft.
Ms. Clerk, put this on there for discussion as part of the alcohol ordinance.
And maybe it's as simple as determining what everybody else has done, Louisville, Lexington, what they've done.
They're doing that research right now, so, and we can give you all the
The current changes, are
Jennifer
available.
and Mary have already got the current ordinance already highlighted and parts of it struck that need to be changed. We can give that to you all so you can review it, so you'll know what portions have been changed and that sort of thing.
Nothing controversial.
There's nothing to do with like closing time.
That would change it now. No. Closing time. What would be opening time?
Again, as staff, we were avoiding that because we don't want to, unless there's some driver like the Alliance or somebody who comes in and says, we want 9 a.m. and then the staff would draft something that says 9 a.m. based on that, and you all can consider one way or another. But Jennifer's the one who's been spearheading, and I told her, she said, what about Sunday opening? I said, no, you don't, that's not.
So
That's
we'll-
not us, that's
we'll
you
have-
all.
We'll have that formal letter, we'll share that with you once we get it, because it's, the Bourbon County Community Alliance along with input from the local distilleries is what's part of this discussion's been about.
And there's been a change in state law. This was a matter was up for, you know, the people that have been here for a while, this was up for consideration once before, but there was a pretty clear case that said no. Said that well, the Supreme Court said this is how we would interpret this section of the law, and some places were ignoring that with the tacit approval of ABC, and I just recommended no. If you got the Supreme Court saying no, then no, but they've changed that law. That's been struck. The language that the Supreme Court interpreted has been struck, so it's now open for your all's consideration.
So we'll get you all that information. All right, anything else? Okay. Any kind of motion for adjournment? So, motion by Councilman Shekels, second.
Second. Oh, darn it.
Councilman Copeland, all in favor, say aye.
Yesterday, it's all.
All in favor?